Ambassador Zixathara stood at the viewing port of her diplomatic vessel, watching the blue and green planet slowly rotate below. Earth looked peaceful from this distance, with its white clouds swirling over vast oceans and green continents. She had visited dozens of worlds in her career as a diplomat for the Colonian Empire, but something about this one felt different. "Ambassador, we are receiving clearance to dock at their orbital station," announced her aide, a younger Colonian named Feltar. His purple skin showed the nervous patterns that indicated stress. This was his first diplomatic mission to a newly discovered species. Zixathara nodded, her own skin maintaining the calm blue tones of an experienced diplomat. "Thank you, Veltar. Signal the other ships in our delegation. We dock in 30 minutes. The MEU delegation consisted of 12 different alien species, all members of the Galactic Council. Each had sent representatives to make contact with humanity, a species that had only recently developed faster-than-light travel. According to their intelligence reports, humans had achieved this breakthrough just 15 years ago, and were still considered primitive by galactic standards. As their ships approached the orbital station called New Geneva, Zixathara studied the structure through her scanner. It appeared to be a simple construction, mostly metal and ceramic materials. The design looked functional, but not particularly advanced. She had seen similar stations built by species that had just entered space travel. "Interesting architecture," commented Kliktar, the insectoid representative from the Vorthak hive. His translator device converted his clicking sounds into standard galactic language. "Very practical." "Yes, they seem to favor efficiency over beauty," agreed Nexari Ambassador Sylvan, her crystalline body reflecting the light from Earth's sun. "Our cultural analysts suggest this indicates a species focused on survival rather than artistic expression." The docking process went smoothly. Human traffic controllers guided each alien vessel to designated berths with professional precision. Zixathara noticed that the humans seemed well organized, perhaps more so than she had expected from such a young spacefaring civilization. Captain Jake Morrison greeted them at the airlock. He was a tall human with brown hair and green eyes, wearing what appeared to be a military uniform in dark blue. His smile seemed genuine as he welcomed each delegate. "Ambassador Zixathara, on behalf of Earth and humanity, welcome to New Geneva Station," Jake said, extending his hand in the human gesture of greeting. "We're honored to host representatives from so many distinguished civilizations." Zixathara accepted the handshake, noting the firm grip and steady eye contact. Humans seemed to value direct interaction, unlike some species that preferred more formal protocols. "Thank you, Captain Morrison. We appreciate your hospitality and look forward to productive discussions. If you'll follow me, I'll escort you to the diplomatic quarters. We've prepared facilities suitable for each of your species' environmental needs." Jake led the group through corridors that seemed wider than necessary, with clean white walls and efficient lighting. As they walked, Zixathara observed the human crew members they passed. Each one moved with purpose, acknowledging their captain with brief nods or salutes. She noticed that even civilian personnel seemed to maintain a certain discipline in their posture and movements. "Your station runs very efficiently," she commented to Jake. "We try to keep things organized," he replied with a slight smile. "Helps prevent problems before they start. We've learned that preparation and clear procedures make everything run smoother." The diplomatic quarters impressed all the delegates. Each suite had been carefully designed to accommodate different atmospheric and environmental requirements. The Vorthak representative needed higher humidity, the Nexari required specific light frequencies, and the Colonians preferred slightly cooler temperatures. Everything had been arranged perfectly. "How did you learn so much about our physiological needs?" asked Dr. Threnax, the scholar from the Ethereal Collective. "Our species only made contact 3 weeks ago." Jake's expression remained friendly, but Zixathara thought she saw something flicker in his eyes. "We're quick learners. Our diplomatic preparation team worked around the clock to ensure your comfort. We believe that understanding others is the foundation of good relationships." That evening, the formal welcome ceremony took place in the station's main conference hall. Human negotiator Lisa Carter presented Earth's position to the assembled delegates. She was a woman in her 40s, with blonde hair and blue eyes, speaking with confidence and clarity. Earth seeks peaceful integration into the galactic community, Lisa began. We understand that we're newcomers to this vast civilization you've all built together. We hope to contribute through trade, cultural exchange, and mutual cooperation. The presentation covered human history, culture, and technology. Lisa described Earth as a world that had overcome its divisions to unite under a single planetary government. She spoke of humanity's desire to learn from older, wiser civilizations and to share what little they had to offer. We've had our share of conflicts in the past, Lisa admitted, but we've learned from our mistakes. We believe that cooperation serves everyone better than competition. Several delegates asked questions about human society, technology, and goals. Lisa answered each one with patience and apparent honesty. She described human art, literature, and scientific achievements. She explained their government structure and economic systems. Zixthera found herself impressed by the human's straightforward approach. Many species she had encountered were either overly aggressive or excessively submissive during first contact. Humans seemed to strike a reasonable balance between confidence and humility. After the formal presentations, the delegates mingled at a reception featuring foods from various worlds, including some human dishes. Zixthera tasted something called pizza and found it surprisingly pleasant. The cheese is from Earth cows, explained a human scientist named Dr. Kevin Walsh. We've been raising livestock for about 10,000 years, started with wild animals and gradually bred them for better milk production and meat quality. Fascinating, replied Kliktar. The Vorthak also practice animal husbandry, though our methods differ significantly. I'd love to learn about your techniques, Kevin said eagerly. We're always looking for ways to improve our food production systems. Back home, we still have debates about the most efficient ways to manage our resources. As the evening progressed, Zixthara noticed that humans seemed genuinely interested in learning about other species. They asked thoughtful questions about alien cultures, technologies, and social structures. Their curiosity appeared authentic, not like species that were merely gathering intelligence for advantage. However, she also noticed subtle details that puzzled her. When humans discussed their own history, they used certain phrases that seemed oddly casual. Lisa had mentioned learning from conflicts several times, and other humans referred to solving problems and managing disagreements in ways that suggested these were routine activities. Captain Morrison joined her near one of the viewing ports that showed Earth below. Beautiful planet, he commented. We've worked hard to keep it that way. Had some close calls over the years, but we figured out how to handle the situations before they got out of hand. Close calls? Zixthara asked. Oh, you know how it is, with growing civilizations. Resources, territory, different ideas about how things should work. We had to learn how to resolve those issues efficiently. Jake's tone remained conversational, as if discussing weather patterns. Something in his phrasing made Zixthera's skin shift slightly toward yellow, indicating mild concern. Most species spoke of conflicts with regret or sorrow. Jake seemed to regard them as simple technical problems that required practical solutions. How did your people typically resolve such disagreements? She asked carefully. Jake smiled, and for a moment, Zixthera thought she saw something cold behind his friendly expression. We got very good at finding permanent solutions. Once you understand the root causes of problems, it becomes much easier to address them completely. The reception ended peacefully, with all delegates expressing satisfaction with the initial contact. Plans were made for detailed negotiations to begin the following day. As Zixthera returned to her quarters, she found herself thinking about the humans' attitudes and expressions. They seemed pleasant enough, even charming in their directness. But something felt wrong, like a puzzle with missing pieces. She decided to pay closer attention during tomorrow's meetings. Perhaps she was simply overthinking the cultural differences between species. Still, as she prepared for sleep, Jake Morrison's smile lingered in her mind, along with his casual mention of finding permanent solutions to problems. The next morning brought the promised cultural exchange session, Ambassador Zixthera entered the conference room along with the other delegates, expecting to learn about human art, music, and social customs. Instead, they found Dr. Ryan Brooks, a human historian, setting up what appeared to be a complex holographic display system. Ryan was a middle-aged man with gray hair and kind eyes behind metal-rimmed glasses. He wore a simple brown jacket and seemed excited about his presentation. "Good morning, everyone. I'm thrilled to share some human history with you today. I've prepared what I call a brief overview of how our species learned to resolve conflicts." Zixthera settled into her chair, curious about how humans handled disagreements. Most civilized species had long histories of peaceful negotiation and compromise. She expected to hear about diplomatic solutions and cultural mediation techniques. "Let's start at the beginning," Ryan said cheerfully, activating his display. The hologram showed primitive humans living in small groups. About 50,000 years ago, our ancestors faced competition for resources. They quickly discovered that organized group action was more effective than individual efforts. The display shifted to show early human settlements. Ryan explained how different tribes competed for hunting grounds and water sources. The successful groups were those that developed the best strategies for eliminating competition. They learned to coordinate attacks, use terrain advantages, and create weapons specifically designed to kill other humans. Several delegates shifted, uncomfortably. Dr. Threnax from the Ethereal Collective asked, "Did they not attempt peaceful coexistence?" Ryan looked puzzled by the question. Why would they? Peace meant sharing limited resources. Victory meant having everything they needed. Natural selection favored the groups that were most effective at removing obstacles to their survival. The presentation continued through human history. Ryan showed the rise of early civilizations, each one built on the conquest of previous societies. He described the development of organized armies, siege warfare, and increasingly sophisticated methods of destroying enemy populations. "The Egyptians were excellent at this," Ryan said with obvious admiration. "They perfected the art of total conquest. When they defeated an enemy, they didn't just take their land. They erased their culture, enslaved their people, and made it impossible for them to ever pose a threat again." Zixthera's skin began showing yellow stress patterns. The casual way Ryan discussed mass destruction and enslavement disturbed her. He spoke as if describing successful farming techniques rather than the elimination of entire civilizations. The hologram moved forward in time, showing Greek warfare, Roman conquests, and medieval battles. Ryan explained each conflict with the enthusiasm of someone discussing a fascinating hobby. The Romans really understood efficiency. They developed standardized methods for conquering territories, managing occupied populations, and preventing rebellions. "But surely there were attempts at peaceful solutions?" asked Kliktar, his insectoid limbs clicking nervously. "Occasionally," Ryan admitted. "But those civilizations usually got conquered by more practical neighbors. Peace was a luxury that only the strongest could afford, and only after they had eliminated all serious competition." The presentation moved into more recent centuries. Ryan described the 100 Years' War between England and France with the same tone he might use to discuss an interesting chess match. He showed maps indicating battle locations, casualty figures, and tactical innovations. "This conflict was particularly educational," he said. "Both sides learned valuable lessons about long-term strategic planning, economic warfare, and the importance of controlling supply lines. The innovations they developed influenced military thinking for centuries." Nixari Ambassador Sylvan's crystalline body flickered with distress patterns. "Dr. Brooks, you speak of these wars as if they were positive developments. Were they not tragedies that caused immense suffering?" Ryan paused, seeming genuinely confused by her perspective. "Well, yes, people died, but that's how humans learn. Each conflict taught us better methods for achieving our objectives. The suffering was unfortunate, but it served a purpose in developing more effective strategies." The display moved to the Napoleonic Wars. Ryan showed detailed battle maps and explained Napoleon's innovations in military organization and tactics. Napoleon understood that warfare was becoming more scientific. He developed new ways to move large armies quickly, coordinate, complex attacks and break enemy morale through psychological pressure. His campaigns killed millions of people, Dr. Threnax pointed out quietly. True, Ryan agreed. But they also established principles that made future conflicts much more efficient. Before Napoleon, wars could drag on for decades with unclear outcomes. He showed how to achieve decisive victories through superior planning and execution. The presentation continued through the 19th and 20th centuries. Ryan described the American Civil War, World War I, and World War II with increasing enthusiasm. He explained how each conflict introduced new technologies and strategies that improved humanity's ability to destroy their enemies. World War II was particularly significant, Ryan said, showing footage of massive battles and bombed cities. It demonstrated the potential of industrial-scale warfare. Humans learned to mobilize entire populations for conflict, turning every aspect of society into a weapon system. Zixthera felt physically ill. The images showed devastated cities, massive refugee movements, and casualty numbers that surpassed the total populations of many alien worlds. Yet Ryan discussed it all as if describing a successful engineering project. The nuclear weapons were especially important, Ryan continued, showing mushroom clouds over Japanese cities. They proved that humans had developed the ability to destroy entire civilizations instantly. This changed everything about how we approach problem solving. You destroyed cities full of innocent people, whispered Veltar, Zixthera's aide. Innocent is a relative term, Ryan replied matter-of-factly. They were part of a hostile nation. The bombings ended the war quickly and saved lives that would have been lost in a longer conflict. It was actually quite merciful compared to alternatives we considered. The final section of the presentation covered more recent conflicts. Ryan described wars in Korea, Vietnam, the Middle East, and various smaller conflicts around the globe. Each one, he explained, taught humans new lessons about warfare in different environments and against different types of opponents. By the end of the 20th century, we had accumulated an enormous database of successful strategies, Ryan concluded. We had tested our methods against every type of enemy, in every kind of terrain, using every available technology. Around 100 million people died in conflicts during that century alone. But the lessons we learned were invaluable. The room fell completely silent. Several delegates stared at Ryan in horror, while others seemed unable to process what they had heard. Zixthera realized that her skin had turned completely yellow, broadcasting her distress to everyone present. Clicktar finally broke the silence. Dr. Brooks, are you telling us that your species considers warfare to be educational? Of course, Ryan replied, looking surprised by the question. How else would we learn? Every conflict teaches us something new about strategy, technology, psychology, or logistics. War is humanity's most effective teacher. But what about the people who died? Asked Sylvan. Ryan shrugged slightly. Their deaths contributed to the advancement of human knowledge. We honor their sacrifice by applying the lessons they helped us learn. Waste is the only real tragedy in warfare. Dr. Threnax stood up slowly. Dr. Brooks' most civilized species view warfare as a failure of diplomacy, a tragic breakdown of rational discourse. You seem to regard it as a science. It is a science, Ryan said proudly. The supreme science, actually. It encompasses psychology, technology, economics, biology, chemistry, physics, and sociology. Humans have been perfecting it for 50,000 years. And you continue to practice. This science? Zixthera managed to ask. Ryan smiled, and for the first time his expression looked genuinely warm. Oh yes, though we've evolved beyond the crude methods shown in today's presentation. Modern human conflict resolution is far more sophisticated than anything our ancestors could have imagined. As the session ended, the delegates filed out in stunned silence. Zixthera lingered, trying to process what she had witnessed. Ryan approached her as she gathered her materials. I hope you found the presentation informative, Ambassador, he said cheerfully. Tomorrow we'll be discussing current human approaches to problem solving. I think you'll find our modern methods quite fascinating. Zixthera looked into his kind eyes and realized with growing horror that Ryan genuinely believed everything he had said. To him, 50,000 years of human warfare wasn't a shameful history to overcome. It was a proud legacy of continuous improvement in the art of destroying obstacles to human success. Yes, she managed to say. Very informative indeed. Admiral Kate Sullivan arrived at the conference room wearing a crisp white uniform, decorated with colorful ribbons and metal badges. She was a woman in her 50s with short silver hair and sharp blue eyes that seemed to notice everything. Her smile appeared friendly, but Zixathera detected something predatory in her expression. "Good morning, honored delegates," Kate said warmly. "I'm excited to show you our basic defensive measures. We believe transparency builds trust between civilizations." After yesterday's disturbing history lesson, several delegates had requested to see human military capabilities. They wanted to understand how this species that seemed obsessed with warfare actually organized their defenses. Kate led the group through a series of corridors that looked different from the rest of the station. The walls were thicker. The lighting was more subdued. And Zixathera noticed that every few meters they passed through sections that could clearly seal off entire areas instantly. "This is our situation room," Kate announced, opening a door to reveal a chamber filled with holographic displays, communication equipment, and workstations staffed by humans in military uniforms. "We monitor activities in this entire region of space from here." The displays showed star maps extending far beyond what Zixathera had expected. Systems were marked with different colors and symbols, creating a complex web of information across hundreds of light years. "Impressive monitoring range," commented Dr. Threnax. "How far does your surveillance extend?" "Currently, we track activities in roughly 500 light years in all directions," Kate replied casually. "Just basic neighborhood watch, really. We like to know what's happening around us." Clicktar's limbs clicked nervously. "That includes all of our home systems." "Yes, though we're only interested in potential threats to Earth," Kate assured him. "We've identified your major trade routes, defensive installations, and fleet movements. Standard precautionary measures." Zixathera felt her skin shifting toward deep yellow. The Colonian Empire's most classified military information was apparently common knowledge to these humans. "How did you obtain such detailed intelligence?" Kate's smile widened slightly. "We're naturally curious. When we encounter new neighbors, we like to understand their capabilities and intentions. Our research stations throughout the region send back regular reports." "Research stations?" asked Nixari Ambassador Sylvan. "Small facilities we've established to study local phenomena," Kate explained, gesturing to dozens of markers on the star map. "They're mostly automated, so they don't interfere with anyone's activities, very discreet." Zixathera realized that many of those markers were positioned near critical strategic locations in various alien territories. What Kate called research stations were clearly intelligence-gathering outposts designed to monitor alien military activities. Kate continued the tour, showing them what she described as defensive weapon systems. The scale and sophistication far exceeded anything Zixathera had seen. Humans had developed energy weapons that could destroy entire fleets, defensive screens that could protect whole planets, and delivery systems capable of striking targets across interstellar distances. "This is our planetary defense network," Kate said, showing a hologram of Earth surrounded by orbital installations. "We can eliminate threats at various ranges, from individual ships to large invasion forces." "How large?" Dr. Threnax asked, quietly. "Conservative estimates suggest we could handle simultaneous attacks from 50 different species using current galactic military standards," Kate replied matter-of-factly. "Though we're always working on improvements." The delegates exchanged worried glances. Kate had just revealed that humans could single-handedly defeat a coalition of every known alien civilization. Of course, direct military action is inefficient. Kate continued, "We prefer more elegant solutions to potential problems." She led them to another section where humans in civilian clothes worked at computer terminals. "This is our economic warfare division. They study trade patterns, resource dependencies, and financial vulnerabilities of various civilizations." Young woman named Carol Peterson looked up from her workstation. "We've mapped the critical supply chains for all major alien economies. Most species are vulnerable to disruption of just 3 or 4 key resources." Vulnerable how? Zixthera asked, though she dreaded the answer. Complete economic collapse within 6 months, Carol replied cheerfully. Once you understand how a civilization feeds itself and powers its technology, you can predict exactly how they'll respond to various pressures. Kate nodded approvingly. Economic warfare is much cleaner than traditional military action. You can destroy an entire civilization without firing a single shot. The population usually thanks you for helping them rebuild afterward. The tour continued to what Kate called the cultural analysis section. Here, humans studied alien psychology, social structures, and behavioral patterns. The level of detail was staggering. They had created psychological profiles of individual leaders, mapped the decision-making processes of alien governments, and identified the specific fears and desires that motivated each species. Understanding your neighbors is the key to peaceful coexistence, explained Dr. Nancy Foster, head of the cultural analysis team. We've studied how each species responds to different types of stress, what triggers their defensive reactions, and what makes them feel secure. That sounds very thorough, Veltar managed to say. It has to be, Nancy replied. If you're going to influence behavior, you need to understand exactly how that behavior is generated. We've identified the specific psychological triggers that can make any alien species act in predictable ways. Zixthera realized that humans hadn't just studied alien cultures, they had weaponized that knowledge, turning it into tools for manipulation and control. The final stop on the tour was the Strategic Planning Center. Here, human analysts created detailed scenarios for dealing with various situations involving alien civilizations. The scenarios covered everything from trade disputes to full-scale conflicts. We believe in being prepared, Kate explained as they watched analysts working on holographic battle simulations. Every species presents unique challenges, so we develop specific strategies for each one. One of the analysts, a man named Tony Martinez, was working on something labeled Colonian Scenario 7. The simulation showed the rapid conquest of Zixthera's home system using a combination of economic pressure, psychological manipulation, and surgical military strikes. Interesting scenario, Zixthera commented, trying to keep her voice steady. One of our more elegant solutions, Tony replied proudly. Complete control of the Colonian Empire within 18 months, with minimal casualties and maximum cooperation from the surviving population. Surviving population? Kliktar asked weakly. About 60% based on our projections, Tony said. Much better than our historical averages. We've learned that leaving most of the population alive makes post-conquest administration much easier. Kate led them away from the simulation before anyone could ask more questions. Of course, these are just theoretical exercises. We hope we'll never need to implement any of these strategies. As they returned to the diplomatic quarters, Kate maintained her friendly demeanor. I hope this tour has been educational. We believe that understanding each other's capabilities reduces the likelihood of misunderstandings. That evening, the delegates gathered privately in Zixthera's quarters. The atmosphere was heavy with fear and confusion. They've already conquered us, Dr. Threnak said quietly. We just don't know it yet. Did you see those economic projections? Sylvan asked. They could destroy the Nexari Trade Federation in less than 4 months. Kliktar's clicking had become rapid and agitated. The Vorthak hive has no defense against their psychological warfare techniques. They understand our social structure better than we do. Zixthera stood at the viewing port, looking down at Earth. The beautiful blue planet seemed sinister now, like a predator's den disguised as a peaceful garden. What disturbs me most, she said slowly, is that they genuinely believe they're being reasonable. Admiral Sullivan thinks she was showing us routine defensive measures. Because to them it is routine, Veltar replied. They've developed the ability to destroy civilizations as easily as we develop new farming techniques. The realization hit them all simultaneously. Humans hadn't invited them here for diplomatic relations. This entire first contact was an intelligence gathering operation designed to assess alien reactions to human capabilities. They're studying us right now, Zixthera whispered. Every question we ask, every expression we make, every fear we show. They're cataloging it all. A soft chime indicated someone at the door. Captain Morrison entered with his usual friendly smile. "I hope everyone enjoyed the tour today," he said pleasantly. "Admiral Sullivan wanted me to check if you have any questions about our defensive systems." The delegate stared at him in silence. Jake's expression remained warm and concerned, as if he genuinely cared about their comfort and understanding. "Everything all right?" he asked. "You all seem a bit quiet tonight." "We're just, processing what we learned today," Zixthera managed to say. "Understandable," Jake nodded. "It's a lot to take in, but I want to assure you that everything we showed you represents our commitment to peaceful coexistence." Colonel Ben Parker knocked on the door of the delegates' meeting room, carrying what appeared to be routine administrative files. He was a lean man in his 40s with dark hair and calm brown eyes. His uniform was simpler than Admiral Sullivan's, but something about his quiet demeanor made Zixthera more nervous than the Admiral's obvious predatory nature. "Sorry to interrupt," Ben said with an apologetic smile. "I need Ambassador Zixthera to verify some details about Colonian dietary requirements. Our kitchen wants to prepare a special meal for tomorrow's farewell dinner." Zixthera followed him to a smaller office where Ben spread several documents across a desk. As he discussed food preparation needs, he casually moved papers around, sometimes placing classified files in full view of Zixthera. "I hope the earth fruits we provided yesterday were acceptable," Ben said, shuffling through what appeared to be intelligence reports. "We analyzed Colonian digestive systems to ensure compatibility." One document caught Zixthera's attention. The header read, "Operation First Contact, Intelligence Assessment Update." She tried to read it without appearing obvious, but Ben seemed completely unaware that sensitive information was visible. "The vegetables were excellent," she replied, scanning the document. What she read made her blood freeze. The report detailed humanity's knowledge of galactic civilization dating back 37 years. Good, Ben continued, moving more papers. "We've learned so much about alien biology in recent decades. Really helps with hospitality." Another document became visible, labeled Infiltration Status Report, Colonian Empire. It contained detailed information about human agents embedded in her government, including several names she recognized as trusted advisors to the Emperor. Ben seemed to accidentally knock over a container of pens, and as he gathered them up, more classified files spread across the desk. Zixthera saw reports on every alien civilization represented in the delegation. Each one contained information that should have been impossible for humans to obtain. "Clumsy of me," Ben said, slowly collecting the papers. "These intelligence briefings are always so detailed. Sometimes I think our analysts get carried away with their research." The Vorthak infiltration report showed that humans had been studying the hive's communications for over 2 decades. They had decoded Vorthak language, understood their social hierarchy, and had even identified genetic weaknesses specific to their species. "Colonel Parker," Zixthera said carefully, "how long has Earth been aware of galactic civilization?" Ben paused in his paper gathering, looking up with surprised innocence. "Officially, since we developed faster-than-light travel 15 years ago. But between you and me, we've been picking up radio signals and studying your cultures for much longer." He returned to organizing his files, apparently unaware that he was revealing state secrets. "Our intelligence services are very thorough. They've been preparing for first contact since the 1980s, I think. Maybe earlier." A document titled Psychological Warfare Applications Alien Species caught Zixthera's eye. It contained detailed analysis of how to manipulate the emotional responses and decision-making processes of different alien races. "The 1980s?" she asked weakly. "Oh yes, possibly even the 1970s, Ben replied casually. "We've had listening posts throughout this region of space for decades. Had to learn about our future neighbors somehow." He stood up, having finally collected all his papers except one, which he left face up on the desk. It was titled First Contact Protocol Information Gathering Phase. The document outlined how humans plan to use diplomatic meetings to assess alien military capabilities, political structures, and psychological weaknesses. "Well, I think we have enough information about your dietary needs, Ben said cheerfully. Tomorrow's dinner should be perfect for everyone. We've put a lot of thought into making sure each species feels comfortable and welcome. After he left, Zixthera sat in stunned silence. Everything they had experienced over the past 3 days had been carefully orchestrated. The humans weren't learning about alien civilizations through first contact. They had been studying every species for decades, gathering intelligence and preparing strategies. She realized that the accidental revelation was probably intentional. Ben Parker had wanted her to see those documents. But why? That evening, she called an emergency meeting with the other delegates. In hushed voices, she shared what she had discovered. The reaction was immediate and terrified. 37 years? Dr. Threnax whispered. They've been spying on us since before some of our governments even formed. The Nexari trade agreements. From the past decade, Sylvan said, her crystalline body flickering with distress patterns. They must have been influenced by human manipulation. Kliktar's clicking became frantic. The Hive's recent expansion into new systems, our population growth initiatives, even our technological developments. What if they've been guiding all of it? Zixthera felt physically sick as the implications became clear. They haven't just been watching us. They've been shaping galactic civilization for decades. Veltar pulled up records on his portable terminal. Ambassador, look at this. Economic agreements between various species over the past 20 years. The patterns suggest coordination by an outside influence. The data was damning. Trade routes, resource allocations, territorial expansions, even conflicts between alien species all showed signs of subtle manipulation designed to benefit human interests. They've been playing us against each other, Dr. Threnax realized, creating dependencies, preventing alliances that might threaten them, positioning themselves as the solution to problems they helped create. A soft knock interrupted their discussion. Captain Morrison entered with his usual warm smile, carrying a tray of refreshments. Thought you might like some evening snacks, he said pleasantly. Earth coffee and some local pastries. I noticed, you've been having intense discussions lately. The delegates stared at him, wondering how much he knew about their conversation. His expression remained friendly and innocent. Captain Morrison, Zixthera said carefully. How advanced is human surveillance technology? Oh, quite sophisticated, Jake replied without hesitation. We can monitor communications across interstellar distances, track individual biological signatures, even detect emotional states through various technological means. He poured coffee as if discussing the weather. Of course, we only use such capabilities for security purposes. Can't be too careful when you're meeting new civilizations. Security purposes? Kliktar asked. Well, you understand, Jake said reasonably. When you're hosting delegates from species you've never met before, you want to ensure everyone's safety. We monitor for signs of distress, illness, or potential conflicts between different groups. Zixthera realized that humans had been listening to everything they said, monitoring their emotional states and probably analyzing their every reaction since they arrived. Very thorough, she managed to say. We try to be, Jake agreed. Our analysts have been fascinated by the different ways your species process information and make decisions. Really helps us understand how to be better hosts. After he left, the delegates sat in horrified silence. Even their private conversations had been intelligence-gathering opportunities for the humans. They know everything we've discussed, Veltar whispered. They probably knew we would discover their deception, Zixthera realized. Colonel Parker's document accident was too convenient. Dr. Threnax looked up from his analysis terminal. I've been reviewing the timing of our invitation to Earth. It came just after several major alien civilizations began discussing closer cooperation. They're breaking up a potential alliance before it can form. The pattern became clear. Humanity had been manipulating galactic politics for decades, preventing alien species from uniting against potential threats. The first contact wasn't diplomacy, it was a demonstration of power disguised as friendship. They're showing us how helpless we are, Sylvan said quietly. Every revelation has been calculated to increase our fear while maintaining the pretense of openness. Zixathara stood and walked to the viewing port. Earth looked peaceful below, but she now understood it was the center of a web of influence and control that spanned hundreds of light years. The question is, what do they want from us, she said. Submission, Dr. Threnax replied. They want us to understand that resistance is pointless. But they're not demanding anything, Veltar pointed out. They're still maintaining the facade of peaceful cooperation. Because they don't need to demand anything, Zixathara realized. They've already won. Every alien civilization is dependent on systems they've influenced, guided by policies they've shaped, protected by agreements they've arranged. The horrible truth became clear. Humanity hadn't conquered the galaxy through force. They had conquered it through patience, manipulation, and strategic thinking that operated on timescales longer than most alien lifespans. We're not delegates, Kliktar said quietly. We're specimens. They're studying our reactions to learning the truth. A communication panel chimed softly. Admiral Sullivan's voice came through the speaker, warm and friendly as always. Good evening, delegates. Just wanted to remind you that tomorrow's farewell ceremony will begin at noon. We've prepared some special presentations about Earth's plans for future cooperation with your civilizations. 3 weeks after returning to the Colonian homeworld, Ambassador Zixathara stood before the assembled Galactic Council. Representatives from 47 civilizations filled the Great Chamber, their various forms creating a rainbow of colors and shapes under the soft lighting. She had requested this emergency session immediately upon her return, but it had taken weeks to convince the Council that the threat was real. Zixathara activated the holographic display system, her skin showing the deep blue patterns of absolute certainty. What she was about to share would change everything the galaxy understood about itself. Honored representatives, she began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's translation systems. I stand before you today to deliver the most important warning in galactic history. Humanity represents an existential threat, unlike anything our civilizations have ever encountered. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. The Altarian delegate, a tall being with silver skin, raised a questioning appendage. Ambassador Zixathara, surely you exaggerate. Our initial report suggested humans were a primitive species seeking peaceful contact. That is exactly what they wanted us to believe, Zixathara replied, activating her first display. But the truth is far more terrifying. Humanity has been aware of our existence for nearly 4 decades. They have been studying us, infiltrating our governments, and manipulating our development. The hologram showed the intelligence documents she had managed to memorize during her visit to Earth. Trade agreements, territorial expansions, and political developments across dozens of worlds all showed signs of human influence. This is impossible, declared the Vorthak Queen's representative. Our hive networks would have detected such infiltration. Your hive networks have been compromised for over 20 years, Zixathara replied grimly. Humans decoded your communication systems before most of you were hatched. They understand your social structure better than you do. She displayed the psychological profiles humans had created for various alien species. The level of detail was staggering. They had mapped the decision-making processes, identified emotional triggers, and developed specific strategies for controlling each civilization. But how is this possible? Asked the Ethereal Collective's representative. We have had no contact with humans until recently. Because they are not conquerors in any sense we understand, Zixathara explained. They do not invade with fleets or demand tribute through force. They conquer by making us grateful for our own defeat. The display shifted to show economic data, spanning the past 2 decades. Trade routes, resource dependencies, and financial systems all showed patterns of human manipulation. Every major trade agreement in the past 20 years has been influenced by human economic warfare specialists, she continued. They created the very systems we depend on for survival. Our prosperity exists only because they allow it. The Nexari, delegate's crystalline form flickered with disbelief. The Nexari Trade Federation is the result of our own initiative and hard work. The Nexari Trade Federation exists because humans needed a way to control resource distribution across 17 systems, Zixathara corrected. Your success was engineered to serve their long-term strategy. She activated a new display showing the scope of human surveillance capabilities. Monitoring stations disguised as research facilities, communication intercepts, and biological tracking. Systems created a web of information gathering across hundreds of light years. They know everything about us, she said quietly. Our military capabilities, our political structures, our cultural values, our individual psychology. They have genetic profiles for our species, psychological assessments of our leaders, and detailed plans for our conquest. Conquest? The Altarian delegate stood up. But they offered peaceful cooperation. Their version of conquest is not military occupation, Zixathera explained. It is the complete redefinition of reality itself. They make us believe that serving their interests is the same as serving our own. The hologram displayed human strategic documents outlining their approach to galactic civilization. Phase 1 involved decades of intelligence gathering and influence operations. Phase 2 was the carefully orchestrated first contact to assess alien reactions. Phase 3 would be the implementation of what humans called voluntary integration. Voluntary integration means the complete absorption of our civilizations into human-controlled systems, Zixathera continued. We will maintain our governments, our cultures, and our sense of independence, but every decision we make will serve human interests. How can you be certain of this? Demanded the Zephyrian representative. Because they told me, Zixathera replied. Simply. During our final meeting, Admiral Sullivan explained humanity's plans for galactic cooperation. She described it as a partnership where humans would help us optimize our civilizations for maximum efficiency and prosperity. The display showed economic projections that humans had shared with the delegation. Under their guidance, every alien civilization would experience unprecedented growth and stability. All they had to do was accept human advisory assistance in key areas of government and industry. It sounds beneficial, admitted the Crystalline Union's delegate. That is exactly the point, Zixathera said. Human psychological warfare is so advanced that their victims thank them for their own enslavement. They have turned conquest into a gift that we eagerly accept. She activated the final series of displays, showing the true scope of human capabilities. Their economic warfare systems could destroy any alien civilization within months. Their surveillance networks monitored every major alien leader. Their strategic planning encompassed scenarios for controlling every known species. But most terrifying of all, Zixathera continued, is their patience. Humans think in timescales that span centuries. While we plan for decades, they plan for millennia. While we react to immediate threats, they shape the fundamental conditions that determine our choices. The chamber fell silent as the representatives absorbed the implications. Finally, the Altarian delegate spoke. What do you propose we do? If they are truly as powerful as you suggest, resistance seems impossible. Resistance is impossible, Zixathera agreed. But that is not the worst part. The worst part is that we will not want to resist. When humans begin their integration process, it will feel like salvation. She paused, letting her words sink in. They will solve our economic problems, end our conflicts, and provide us with prosperity beyond our dreams. Our people will celebrate human guidance as the beginning of a golden age. Then perhaps cooperation is the wise choice, suggested the Vorthak representative. Cooperation assumes equal partnership, Zixathera replied. What humans offer is absorption. We will become extensions of their will, believing ourselves to be independent while serving their every purpose. The display showed human, cultural, analysis documents detailing how each alien species could be gradually modified through education, media influence, and social engineering. Within 3 generations, alien cultures would voluntarily adopt human values and priorities. They call it optimization, Zixathera explained. The elimination of inefficient cultural practices, the standardization of social systems, and the alignment of all civilizations toward common goals. Goals that humans have defined. And if we refuse? Asked the ethereal collective representative. Refusal is not possible, Zixathera said quietly. Because refusal requires understanding that you are being conquered, Humans have made conquest indistinguishable from progress. She activated one final display, showing the most chilling document she had seen. It was titled, Post-Integration Goals, Galactic Civilization Development Plan. The document outlined humanity's 1,000-year plan for expanding beyond their current region of space. We are not their ultimate goal, she revealed. We are their proof of concept. Once they have perfected their techniques on us, they plan to expand across the entire galaxy. Every intelligent species will be brought into their system. The chamber erupted in frightened discussion. Representatives argued, pleaded, and demanded solutions that Zixthera knew did not exist. There is one thing we must understand, she said, raising her voice above the chaos. By holding this meeting, by sharing this information, we are playing directly into their hands. The chamber fell silent again. This entire discussion is part of their plan, she continued. They wanted us to discover their true nature. They wanted us to feel helpless. They wanted us to understand that resistance is impossible. Why? Whispered the Nexari delegate. Because fear makes us predictable, Zixthara replied. And predictable behavior can be managed. We will return to our worlds and implement exactly the responses they have calculated. Some of us will try to prepare defenses that they have already neutralized. Others will seek alliances that they have already undermined. A few will attempt to flee to regions they have already claimed. She looked around the chamber at the terrified faces of galactic civilization's most powerful representatives. We have encountered the ultimate predator species, she concluded, one that has disguised warfare as diplomacy, conquest as friendship, and extermination as salvation. They call themselves peacekeepers, but they are the gods of war incarnate. Zixthera deactivated her displays and faced the assembly one final time.